Hello, I'm Nathan Wood, pastor of North Dayton Baptist Church, and welcome to day 117 of the McShane reading plan. Today we are in Numbers 4, Psalm 38, Song of Solomon 2, and Hebrews 2. Psalm 38 talks about David speaking of his brokenness and sin and distress, and he speaks of them in physical terms. My wounds stink and are corrupt because of my foolishness, verse 5. I am troubled and bowed down greatly. I grow mourning all the day long. For my loins are filled with a loathsome disease, and there is no soundness in my flesh. We are sick with sin. We are full of corruption. We have no goodness about us apart from Christ. We can only dream of his righteousness. And when we look to other things in this world for comfort, they will either not satisfy, fail to cure us of our disease, or when we look to people, well, just look at verses 11 and 12. My lovers and my friends stand aloof from my sore, and my kinsmen stand afar off. They also that seek my life lay snares for me, and they seek my hurt, and they that seek my hurt speak mischievous things and imagine deceits all the day long. So our enemies are going to continue to pursue us and destroy us, seek to destroy us while we are in a state of brokenness. And even our loved ones are going to wash their hands of us. Who is the truest friend that we have? Oh, verse 1, O Lord, rebuke me not in thy wrath, neither chasten me in thy hot displeasure. Oh, folks, if we're in sin and distress, even God himself cannot look upon sin. We are in a bad state. But look at this. Verse 10 of Hebrews 2. For it became him for whom are all things, in other words, God, Christ, the Son of God. All things are for him, remember. And by whom are all things, in bringing many sons unto glory, and to make the captain of their salvation perfect through sufferings. Oh my goodness. So God cannot look upon our sufferings and is perfectly just in his disgust at our sufferings due to sin, just like everybody else who is disgusted and wants to seek our hurt. God looks at sin and is completely and utterly just in loathsome disgust of it. But rather than continuing in his holiness and simply destroying us, he came down to us, and he is made the captain of our salvation. In other words, you see, captain is a field grade officer leading the charge for our salvation himself. It's like a general coming onto a battlefield. It's interesting. There's a quote that says, nothing quite so much like a God on earth as a general on a battlefield. Literally, he comes to be our captain, to lead us into to lead the charge for our salvation through his suffering. He himself bears our penalty. He himself takes the bullet for us. Verse 16, for verily he took not on him the nature of angels, but took on him the seed of Abraham. So he became a human. So he didn't even come in the form of an angel, powerful to lead the charge of our salvation. No, he came to be one of us, to bear the suffering in our stead, and to pull alongside us, and to be our fellow, not only our Lord, but to lead from beside us and just before us. Wherefore in all things it behooved him to be made like unto his brethren, that he might be a merciful and faithful high priest in things pertaining to God, to make reconciliation for the sins of the people. And for that he himself suffered being tempted, he is also able to succor them that are tempted. He was tempted. He is sympathetic, and this is going to be a theme in Hebrews. he became one of us. And more than just one of us, he became a son of Abraham. So he is a member of the household of Israel. He became one of his chosen people. And he is, by extension, allowed us Gentiles to be grafted in when we show faith in him by believing in his Son, by believing his gospel. So I want to look at verse 3. How shall we escape if we neglect so great a salvation, which at the first began to be spoken by the Lord and was confirmed unto us by them that heard him? How shall we escape if we neglect so great a salvation? Folks, there's no greater salvation ever. This is the greatest love story in all of the universe. God himself bore our punishment. If we neglect the God of the universe bearing our punishment, becoming one of us in order to be slain in our stead, and rising again so we might be raised with him, if we neglect this, we have no chance. This is the stuff of legends and stories that is the most epic of any epic story there ever was. The greatest love story, the greatest fantasy could not measure up to the greatness of this story. God himself becoming man to reconcile us unto himself in a perfect kingdom for 1,000 years and forevermore. Folks, if we neglect this perfect fantasy love story, as it seems, that is real, if we neglect this, then we have no hope in this world or in the world to come. It's a no-brainer. Trust in him today. He wants to be reconciled to you. He wants to love you with nothing between you and him. Will you let him save you today? Trust in the Son, Jesus Christ. Trust that he died for you and that he rose for you. We love you. Have a good evening.